Okay, so this isn't really something that I was expecting to read today, but here we are, bro. This gaming generation has just been weird. Like there's no other way to say it. I just feel like this has been one of the weirdest gaming generations that I quite frankly can remember being a part of. Really, only what a little over 3 years in. Like I feel like personally, I feel like this gaming generation has had its great moments. Like we have gotten good games this gaming generation, despite what some people might say. But mixed in with that as well, we've had a lot of disappointments this gen also. On both sides, really, too. Like not just Xbox, but PlayStation as well, and even Nintendo at a times as well. We've also gotten a lot of layoffs this gen. Like that's one of the biggest things that's been going on in gaming as of late. You get fired, everybody gets fired. So it's like this generation, though it's had its like great moments, it's also had like a lot of like just weirdness and disappointments and layoffs and hacking and leaks and all this type of crazy stuff going. It's just been weird. So yeah, seeing this jump today, I was like, wait, what? After sales of the PlayStation 5 failed to meet expectations, Sony has said the console is entering the latter stage of its life cycle. Sony had set an ambitious target of 25 million PS5 sold during the current financial year ending March 31st, 2025, but has now revised its forecast down to 21 million after PS5 sales during the crucial holiday 2023 quarter came in lower than expected despite aggressive promotions. Sony sold 8.2 million PS5s during the third quarter ending December 31st, 2023, up from 7.1 million sold during the same quarter the previous year, but that was not enough to hit Sony's lofty target. According to Bloomberg, Sony's senior vice president Naomi Matsuoka, if I'm saying that right, said the company now expects the sales pace of the PS5 to start falling from the next fiscal year, which begins April 2024 and runs until the end of March 2025. Looking ahead, PS5 will enter the latter stage of its life cycle, Naomi is quoted as saying. As such, we will put more emphasis on the balance between profitability and sales. For this reason, we expect the annual sales of PS5 hardware will start falling from the next fiscal year. Stop right there. This is literally from December 20th, 2023. This is like two months. It's like 2 months ago. Sony put on their site. PlayStation 5 achieves milestone of 50 million units sold to consumers. Granted, remember, when PS5 dropped, you couldn't even find this junk. I feel like for like, what, a year and a half? Suckers was scalping the hell out of PS5. I was under the assumption that PS5 was doing great. That is definitely doing better than an Xbox. Like, suckers is struggling trying to sell Xbox units. Like, suckers is doing like discounts. You could get an Xbox and like a buy one get one buy one get one. You could find a one in like a cereal box. The cereal box. Yet Sony, didn't they just say like a year or two ago that like the track that PS5 was on that is like set to outpace the PS4 given like the same like time frame or something like that? PS5, at least I thought, was doing well. Going back to Sony had set an ambitious target of 25 million PS5 sold, but it's now revised its forecast down to 21 million. So they had higher expectations than, they had a set target goal, and I guess they're starting to like read the room a little bit and add all the numbers together and see, yeah, we ain't gonna reach this. So it's entered the latter stage. It's entered the latter stage of his life cycle. That is pretty much what they're saying. And yeah, it's just, again, I thought that Sony was considering the situation that they are in, to where, you know, what have a lot of people been saying about, if you are a PlayStation owner, what's been one of the biggest critiques of PlayStation these 3 years into this gen so far? We haven't really gotten a lot of like major exclusive titles outside of Insomniac and I guess Santa Monica. There's been essentially nothing. Naughty Dog hasn't been talking about nothing else since Last of Us 2 dropped in 2020, and they've been milking that jump for 4 years now. We haven't heard from a Sucker Punch since Dosho dropped in 2020. Outside of maybe 2, we haven't been getting like a lot of major exclusives from PlayStation. And even with that, PS5 has been selling well. Hell, I bet you Microsoft would be ecstatic to be in the position that Sony is with PlayStation. And my viewer just sent me this last night that Sony confirms there are no plans to release any major franchise titles until at least April 2025. Granted, they got, you know, Stellar Blade coming this year if you're looking forward to that. They got Final Fantasy VII Rebirth coming this year. Rise of the Ronin. PlayStation does have some stuff coming this year, but it's more like exclusive like partnerships with like these companies and stuff like that. And they're not like major like exclusive titles like, you know, their studio that, you know, that they own. So some would argue, I mean, if you don't have a PS5, some would say, I mean, hell, what reason have they given me to get a PS5? And the craziest thing about this is, you know what gets me the most? You look on one side, you see Microsoft about to have a freaking, what, a little Xbox podcast or something. they got some event coming tomorrow. Actually, I guess going over, you know, what they had said last week about Xbox and how, you know, they might be going multi-platform. You got Microsoft going through what they're going through. You got Sony doing well, but I guess not as good as they want to be doing right now. And now they're saying this. And you look over at that little quiet kid in the corner. You know, that a kid that no one really is paying attention to, and he might be ugly and outdated and last gen, but you look over at that Nintendo Switch in the freaking corner to where my junk got cobwebs all over it, but you ain't seeing Nintendo complain about nothing. If anything, these suckers is sitting back cool and like, look at these idiots always trying to about their precious hardware and their stupid specs. We don't need none of that. We got over 130 million plus Switch units sold since 2017. You can't tell us nothing. And we ain't even trying to compete with y'all suckers. We all know the Switch is outdated in a multitude of ways. It ain't stopping them having any amount of success at all. At all. And yet, you have both Sony and Microsoft in different ways complaining. So, again, this generation has been weird. And another thing with Sony that I've been saying literally since the PS3 era. Bro, Sony will literally have features and they don't even use that junk. Why is it that one of the best games, one of the most fun games that I have experienced on PS5 being is it called Astro? Was it Astro's Playroom or whatever that, like the freaking launch title that was on PS5? And if you want to like really get a experience of the new DualSense controller and the haptics and the adaptive triggers and all that, that is a great game to play. But as time goes on, and I know it's probably not Sony, it's the devs, But they always stray away from that. They did that on PS3. Eventually, they went away from the 6-axis. And some games that use the 6-axis, it was really good, like Resistance Fall of Man. They did the same thing on a PS4. Eventually, they went away from the 6-axis. The whole haptics and the adaptive triggers, that was one of the biggest, like, you know, new big features that, you know, the PS5 was going to have in the DualSense controller. And now you fast forward 3+ years later, it's like nobody uses that junk. Like nobody really like integrates their game into taking full advantage of what the PS5 can do. And again, I know that this is more so on the devs than Sony, but if these are the first party devs, especially, sucker, force them to do it. Like, what the freak? Force these suckers to take advantage of what the PS5 is capable of doing. Say what you want about the Switch and it being a gimmick and, you know, it's outdated. All that stuff might be true. But one thing the Switch has going for it, and why they have, despite it being outdated compared to Xbox and PlayStation, why they have had a successful run with the Switch since 2017, is Switch games do feel unique. There are a lot of games that you can play on Switch, and the experience you get on Switch you can't get on Xbox or PlayStation, and that's because they take advantage of what the Switch is, what the Switch can do. I feel like that's another thing that has really just mind boggled me about when Sony has these like new features in their controller, why they always stray away from it after launch. It's happened literally since the PS3 era. And I know that's like going like a little like off track about like what this vid is about, but like I just find it wild that, like, you know, they could say something like that when, again, I feel like Microsoft would kill to be in the position that Sony is in right now. And people have said over the years, and I believe this as well, that as we continue to progress with tech and like gaming, and we go from one gen to the next, that the life cycle of these consoles are going to start to get shorter and shorter and shorter, because it like averages about like what, maybe 6 to 7 years before we get into, you know, the next console. People have predicted that as time goes on, it's going to get shorter and shorter and shorter, which I do think is going to happen as these consoles start to get more and more PC like. Hey. hey, listen. When Nintendo put out that next console, we in there like swimwear. Boy, you let it be a GameCube too. And it, bro, Nintendo. Now I'm all over Nintendo again, right? Hey, but again, that's one thing you always gotta give props to Nintendo for, bro. Again, we know they are weak points, but man, like, Nintendo sticks to what they do. They know their strengths, they know their weaknesses, but yet they still somehow find a way to make it work. So I don't know, man. This is interesting to me. This is interesting because of, you know, all of the stuff that I just said, but, you know, just with how much longer y'all think this a gen got? I mean, what again, we've been in this gen for, again, and if you like put all this in perspective, it's not crazy to like say that, because if you look at it technically, we are 3+ years in. Most of these gens average around being 6 to 7 years long before they get into the next gen. So what, like another 3 or 4 years? I mean, yeah, that would be on like the average life cycle of most consoles. So for them to say that, I mean, technically it's not wrong. It's just not something you want to hear right now, being only 3 years in. And with a lot of, and with a lot of the people still not having a PS5 or just getting PS5s. So I don't know, man. What do y'all think? What do y'all think about this and what Sony just said about PS5 is entering the latter stage of its life cycle? Stuff going on with Microsoft, Nintendo. What do y'all think about just gaming in general so far this generation? Have you had a good experience so far? Has this gen let you down? Has gaming gotten worse to you? Compare the first 3 years of this gen to the first three years of last gen. Like, let's have a whole discussion. How do you guys think the future of gaming is going to be alike? Leave all that more in the comment section below. But until my next video, my brothers and sisters, I'll catch you boys in my next one, all right?